Welcome to our tutorial on creating a Match-3 game using Java. Today, we'll walk through the essential components, from setting up the project to implementing the game mechanics. Let's get started. First, ensure you have Java Development Kit, JDK, installed on your machine. If you haven't installed it yet, visit the Oracle website and download the latest version. Also, make sure you have an IDE. We'll be using IntelliJ IDEA for this tutorial. Now, let's create a new Java project. Open IntelliJ IDEA and select New Project. Choose Java, and then click Next. Give your project a name, such as Match-3 Game, and click Finish. Now that our project is set up, let's create a package structure. Right-click on the SRC folder, choose New Package. Name it COM, Match-3 Game. This way, we are organizing our code better. Next, we will create our main class. Right-click on the COM, Match-3 Game package, then select New Java class. Name it Game. This will be the entry point for our application. Let's add our main method to the game class. The main method is essential for any Java application as it is where the program starts executing. Now, it's time to set up our game window. We need to import the necessary packages for creating a GUI. We will be using Swing for this. Add the following import statements at the top of your game class. Let's code the constructor of our game class to set up the frame. We will create a JFrame and set its properties. Now we need to call our constructor from the main method to display our window. Update your main method as follows. Compile and run your program. If everything is set up correctly, you should see a simple window titled Match-3 Game. Next, let's start designing the game grid. A Match-3 game typically has a grid of tiles. First, we will define some constants for the grid size and tile types. Now, we need to create a 2D array to represent our grid. Add the following code to your game class. Next, we need a method to initialize our grid with random tile types. Let's create a method called initializeGrid to populate our grid. Call the initializeGrid method in the constructor right after setting up the JFrame. Now we need a method to draw the grid. We will override the paint method of the JFrame. Create a new method called paintComponent. Next, implement the drawGrid method. In this method, we'll draw rectangles for each tile based on its type. We can use a helper method getColor that returns a color based on the tile type. Let's implement that next. Compile and run your code again to visualize the grid. You should see a grid of colored tiles representing different tile types. Our next step is handling user input. We want the player to be able to select tiles. We will add mouse listeners to our JFrame. Now let's implement the handleTileSelection method. This method will get the tile's coordinates clicked by the player. Compile and run your code again. Try clicking on the tiles, and you should see the coordinates printed in the console. Next, we need a mechanism to swap tiles. Let's create a class called Tile to handle tile functionality. Right-click on your package, choose New Java class, and name it Tile. Now update the grid in the game class from a 2D int array to a 2D array of tile objects. This way, each tile can carry its own properties. In the initializeGrid method, update the instantiation of the grid to create tile objects instead of integers. Also, modify the drawGrid method to draw tiles based on the tile object's type. Let's proceed with adding swapping functionality. We need to keep track of the currently selected tile. We'll add a member variable to hold the selected tile coordinates. Next, modify the handleTileSelection method to handle the swapping logic. When a tile is selected, we store its coordinates. If a second tile is clicked, we swap the two tiles. Now let's implement the swapTiles method. This method will exchange the types of two tiles. Compile the code and run it again. You should be able to swap tiles by clicking on two different tiles in succession. Next, we need to implement the matching logic. We will create a method called checkMatches that checks the grid for any matching tiles after a swap. In the checkMatches method, we will look for horizontally or vertically adjacent tiles of the same type. Once we find any matches, we will remove them from the grid. After identifying the matches, we need to remove the matched tiles from the grid. Update the check matches method accordingly. Finally, call the check matches method after a swap in the handle tile selection method. Compile your project and test the matching logic. After swapping tiles, you should see match tiles reset to new random types. Now, we need to add some visual feedback during gameplay. We will add some animations when tiles are removed. Let's define a method called animate tile removal. For simplicity, we'll just add a delay before redrawing the grid for now. Let's structure that final method to include a delay. Incorporate the animation method after the match checking logic. Let's compile and run the game one last time. You should now see an animation effect when you match and remove tiles. Congratulations! You have successfully built a basic Match-3 game using Java. You can expand upon this foundation further by adding more features such as score tracking, levels, or additional tile types. Thank you for watching our tutorial. Don't forget to subscribe for more programming tutorials and let us know in the comments what features you would like to see in your game.